Hi, I'm Jim Sullivan. Welcome to Boston Rock Talk. This is our first shoot at the Hojoko Restaurant, part of the Verb Hotel here in Kenmore Square in Boston. Our guest today is Dave Gutter from the band Rustic Overtones. Hello, Dave.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to Boston.
Thanks for having me.
It's not a long trip for you, though. You're from Portland.
Yes, it's about 2 hours, a little under that without traffic.
I'm from Maine, a long time ago, as you are now.
Maine rules.
Maine rules. And if you have a hat on because you have to, because it's cold.
My
right?
head's just accustomed to being covered this time of year.
Right, of course. You're not bald or anything.
No.
I have my You're here solo today with us, but you're playing with the band later at a venue, Brighton Music Hall later tonight. You're a 7-piece now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Explain, I guess, if you can, for people, just a bit about how it came together. And then I know there's sort of a checkered, staggered history of the band after the formation, but what were the roots of it?
The roots of it were 7 guys that were really into music. You know, we all kind of like studied music, devoured every different style of music we could. So it was, it wasn't like we were, guys that were into blues music or guys into metal music or into soul music. We were into everything. And then, so it became kind of a melting pot. And that's kind of where our sound came from, is like all these influences and constantly trying to take those influences somewhere else, musically for us. So.
When I was listening to you, I thought I kind of had you pegged. I was going through you on YouTube. And I went, okay, I've got an idea where they're coming from. And then the next one, no. There's metal at the end of this one, thrash metal at the end of this. So, it brought to mind to me something Terry Adams from NRBQ. I was interviewing him recently, and he was talking about the concept of omnipop. Have you heard that word before?
I have not heard it.
He kind of coined it. It's kind of a joking thing, but basically omnipop means we do everything. It's all part of our stew, and I think that's kind of where you're coming from.
Where they come from, in like the 70s, if you were a rock band, you did everything. You had influences, or even before that, the Beatles. I mean, they had everything from, like British dance hall ska influence to Middle Eastern, everywhere. So I think that rock music should be a broad term. It should be music, but like turned up a little bit. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of bands do kind of find a genre, stick to it, and maybe some are fearful that if they break out of the genre, their fans will wander away. Any concerns about that for you, or do you figure your fans just go, "We accept this as a"?
Well, you can be a fan of a chef, or you can be a fan of a certain entree that they make. But it basically comes down to if you like a musician, or you like where they're coming from musically and personally. Through their lyrics, I mean, they should be able to take you anywhere. And if they can't take you there, then maybe you're not doing it the right way or something.
Now, you're playing here, of course, solo acoustic, but the band is anything but that.
Yes.
And in fact, there was one post I saw online that was great, and it's to the effect of listening to you guys, if you don't dance, you dead, basically, which is to say you're a very active band and get people moving. How do you sort of translate that to what you're doing now?
Well, I mean, it's what I'm doing here today, acoustically.
Yeah, here today, yeah.
Well, it always comes down to the lyrics for me. The way I derive energy and like some extra, like fury to play live, and is through the words to the songs. If I believe what I'm saying, then I can say them with conviction. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I think my energy for live performance comes from, is just trying to tell somebody something with conviction.
I'm guessing songs start acoustically no matter what, right? You and the guitar?
Not always.
No, really?
Sometimes we'll just make these huge, killer grooves with horn lines and, bombastic drums, and then that soundtrack will trigger a dialogue in my head, like, this is maybe what this song would be about. This is what the mood is of this song. So sometimes it starts with an acoustic guitar, but the acoustic guitar doesn't always set that soundtrack element that for me is kind of important. It's kind of like, it's the score and the dialogue together, and when those two meet and they glue together, I think that's what you feel a song.
As I was listening to you last night, I was also looking at the lyric sheet. Lyric sheet did help me out because it's not exactly easy in the sound that you have to pick out what you're saying, singing sometimes. But that's normal too.
Yeah, I'm a marble mouth. I mumble. I have 7 guys playing on top of me.
There's a few words that are swallowed, and I looked at the sheet and went, "That's what it is." There you go.
But every once in a while, if there is a word I write, sometimes I'll have a word and I'll be, man, I really wanted a different word for that, and I never quite found it. So sometimes I will kind of cheat, I'll just cheat a word.
Well, that's a classic rock move, isn't it? I mean,
is.
how many songs have we listened to as kids where we don't understand the lyrics, and we, have a set of lyrics in our head, and only later do we realize that, oh, it's not a bathroom on the right, it's a bad moon rising, so to speak. You're going to start us off with, I believe, "The Show Must Go On,"
Yes.
which is not a Queen song.
No, it's not. It's a turn of phrase or an idiom that I always liked, and there's a few songs called "The Show Must Go On."
Yeah.
I'm sure, you get into the musical world, forget about it. The Broadway probably has lots of "Show Must Go On," but this is my version of this.
This
This is my version of the title, "The Show Must
"The Show Must Go On." Your song, written by you, but a title in common usage. That's great. Dave? I thought for a brief second you were going to break into Pinball Wizard.
Well, I almost smashed the guitar.
But then what would you do tonight?
Well, I play electric tonight.
This is
just a plaything.
Just a plaything. You recorded an album with Tony Visconti,
Yes.
and this would have been in what year? 2002, maybe?
We started hanging out and doing pre-production around 99 and 2000.
Mm-hmm.
It was released in 2002, but we spent a better part of a year hanging out with Tony Visconti, and I mean he's a wizard. He's one of the greats. He's one of the producers that is a rock star in his own right behind the board, and he also he was Bowie's bass player. So
Well, yes, there was. You had a guest in the studio that helped you on a couple of songs that you were going to play in a bit, and that guest was David Bowie. How did that come about, and what were your thoughts about this fellow joining you?
Well, it had been I believe 14 years since Tony Visconti and Bowie had spoken. They had some sort of public feud in the media, and so they hadn't been in touch since the 80s. So and he kept saying he'd hear a horn part and he'd be like, "Oh, who would really love this? David Bowie would just think this is delightful." And that's how Tony Visconti talked. We had Funkmaster Flex come in the studio and scratch records, and he's like, "Oh, delightful." And it was but yeah, he said, he was like, "Oh, Bowie would love you guys, and I should call him up and have him stop by." And to a rock band, a DIY, very much coming from this, punk rock background, or printing up our stuff ourselves, selling it out of the back of our car. You don't just call up someone like David Bowie and have him stop by the studio. Sure. So it didn't even seem like it was imaginable. And then one day he just walked in, and half of us were eating sandwiches, and half of us were playing this faux jazz that we thought was really funny. They would just, we were in the control room basically just going on all the instruments as fast as we could. And then Bowie walks in, and people have pickles hanging out of their mouth and jazz in their grip. Yeah, it was very surprising, but it was I want to say seconds before all of that broke down. Bowie didn't have any security with him. You expect this laser light show of a person to walk in from another planet, and it wasn't like that at all. He came in. He was very humble. Mm-hmm. He was very quiet and contemplative, and he listened to all of our music. He just sat and listened to the pre-production that we had for the record, And he latched on to this one song that was vaguely about space. It was like aliens pick up a
This is Sector Z.
yeah, aliens pick up like a satellite transmission, and it's rock and roll music, and they're not sure what to make of it. So it's like an earthling defending rock and roll to an alien.
And of course, he had an album, Earthling, right?
Yes,
Yes.
He took us to space. He was the first guy. I mean, like, I can't think of any song. Maybe like Purple People Eater or whatever that is. But before Bowie, I mean, no one took us imaginatively to space, and then not only took us to space in this really unknown place, but he made it feel human and made you. He tugged at your heartstrings as an astronaut, you know. So when he started talking about doing that one, we were like, yeah, that's a great idea.
So that wasn't written with him in mind.
Well, the chorus
or was
was
it?
written with him.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, at first, you know, it almost seemed like our song was a parody of David Bowie because it was so, you know, like, all right, yeah, we're singing out space. Sorry about that, Bowie. And then, but then we went in the vocal booth for like an hour and came up with the chorus, which was it's the same thing as, you know, ground control to major tom, back and forth communication. So it was really fun, and he was really he was just a music lover. Like I was saying, all the guys in Rustic come from extensive, very eclectic music backgrounds. Bowie was the same way, and he had an appreciation for the fact that we were trying to do something different. As soon as we got a big record deal, we were like, all right, we have to reinvent the wheel because there's going to be 1 million people that hear us. We didn't think about hit records. We were thinking about like, how are we going to turn the music business on its head because it wasn't at a great spot. So Bowie nurtured that. He would delve into like some of the weirder songs in the record and really like oh, that's what it is. That's what's about Rustic that's cool. That's the essence of what you guys should do. And then, you know, like the hit songs, the pop songs, not that we ever had any hits, but the ones that were more like that, he just kind of like grazed over and like, let's work on this weird experimental stuff. So that was cool that he taught me a lot about what's important musically. And I don't know, he was a great person.
You know, in Sector Z, I love his sort of spoken, like you're saying, the answer thing.
Yeah.
And I think at some point he said, "This is rock and roll," right?
Yeah, I mean that's
So
legitimized.
So
right there.
exactly, I was going to say. So he's saying, David Bowie is saying, "This is rock and roll," and it's your song. So if anybody questions that,
we spent like a summer in New York City. We recorded at Philip Glass's studio, Looking Glass, with Bowie and Visconti. And Bowie would bring us out on like little field trips to places. Like we'd go to lunch with Bowie, and you could like smoke cigarettes anywhere you wanted if you were with Bowie, because he walks in like smoking a cigarette in like a nice restaurant, and everyone's like, and then like, oh, it's Bowie, you can't tell. So then you'd have like 7 guys behind him like, yeah, we're smoking in your place, And we smoked in museums, we smoked in cabs and nice restaurants, but he would bring us places, and he did an interview for Rockline, and they asked him about collaborations, and in the same breath that he mentioned John Lennon and Queen, he gave us a shout out, and he was just always like that. He was always really supportive of us, and he has said over and over again that we're one of his favorite bands. So I don't think I can, ever stop playing rock and roll because of that. I think he just made me a lifer.
you're going to play the 2 Bowie songs in a second, but one question before I let you do that. You told Rolling Stone something about working with David that I read, and I kind of did a spit take when I read it. Would you mind telling people what it was?
Which part was it? The fart?
It involved a bodily function,
The
yes.
flatulence? Well, Bowie and I, and everybody really, he set this precedent that we were all just like goofing around. We were like way into the music. We're really serious about it, but there was a lot of goofing around. the viral video that was like the elephant sat down on the guy cleaning the elephant cage. Bowie sent me that. He'd also send me these really ridiculous things, but he had a great sense of humor. And when he did his first take, I farted into the talkback mic in response to. He was like, "How did that sound, Dave?" Well, Bowie, you know, it kind of sounded a little bit too. And everyone was like, "Oh my God, he just farted directly into David Bowie's headphones," and it was great. I'm really glad I did.
I'm guessing it broke him up, right?
It did, yes, yes.
That's great.
But that, you know, I tell that story because the vibe was like so jovial and cool, and he treated us as though we were on the same level as him, as a human, as a musician, and it made the songwriting process a whole different animal because of that. I still write with other people, like bigger artists than myself, and I think that the wall that got broken down when I got to write with Bowie was like, I can do anything now. I'm not afraid of anyone.
Well, let's honor him with a couple that you're going to do. You know, I was playing that song on YouTube last night, and you know how YouTube, the songs roll one into another?
Right.
The next song was Black Star, Bowie's Black Star.
Oh, that's amazing.
I kid you not. And when I was listening to Black Star again, I also thought, especially the first verse of the song you just played, really very similar in a certain way. The tone, you know.
Well, that song, the song "Man Without a Mouth" that we did with Bowie, we had only signed up for, like, Bowie wants to sing. All right, cool, you can do a song. And we're like, oh my God, how in the world are we going to afford this? You know, Bowie wants to sing on a record, but then how do you talk, you know, like invoice with David Bowie? So he ended up not charging us at all for the whole session. And he requested Man Without a Mouth. It was a song at the end of the demo that he had latched onto, and he came up with a part for it, you know, like singing along to it in his car. And so that was huge when Bowie comes up and says, "Yeah, I'm going to be on your record." And I was wondering if it's okay with you if it's twice. They're like, "Yes."
You can do that.
But the Black Star, the echo of the Black Star album, to me is an amazing thing. I thought that I had felt this impact stronger than others because I knew him personally. But talking to people, I don't think that's the case. I mean, the same guy that did usher us into the unknown of space and in glam rock, the unknown of transgender, the unknown of sexuality, of all of the imagination. He's the same guy that with Black Star is ushering us into thinking about death. And if anyone can conjure what it might be like and give us some solace, it would be a person like David Bowie. So Black Star is a heavy, heavy album.
A deeply moving record, especially, of course, now. Let's lighten it a bit and let's talk. We've talked about the past. Well, let's button up the past. The record that's on, Viva Nueva, right? Correct? Yes. That got re-released, did it not? 2014?
Yes.
Okay,
we re-released Viva Nueva with two different versions of the album. There was an album that came out on the label that had some remixes and some different people joined in to make it, that was cool. Some songs were produced by some other people, and we had fun working with them too, but we also wanted to put out the record we made with Visconti and Bowie, just untouched. So the reissue of Viva Nueva is both the record company album and then the Visconti, Rustic, and Bowie experience as we perceived it.
Right. Good. So let's move into present and future. What are you working on? And who are you working with?
I am the lyricist and songwriter for a lot of different groups right now. I did the last Susan Tedeschi and Derek Trucks album, and I'm the sole lyricist that got to collaborate with Aaron Neville on his newest album that's coming out in April, and it's this return to his roots of New Orleans. I got to spend months with Aaron, interviewing him about his time growing up in New Orleans. I kind of got into some of the grittier side of the city and where the music comes from, and the slang and everything. So that was a really fun record to make.
So your job was to kind of get into his head to write the lyrics?
Yeah, he gave me a stack of 300 poems that date back to the 1950s. And he was like, if there's any stuff in here you want to... and what those did was more than... It provided more fodder than I needed for making a record for him, because it went all over the place. There was like letters to his wife. There were things that were very spiritual. And then there was things that were like, talking about pimps and players on on the street and the music scene. There was a lot of different facets to his writing, and I categorized them into different places, and it would be like, oh, this sounds kind of like a gospel tune, and I'd work on a gospel tune, and I'd go through the piles of lyrics and poems, and but I predominantly wrote the lyrics, but they were inspired by his true life experiences, and it was a really intimate record to make. It was cool to make it, and it comes out in April. It's called Stomping Grounds.
How about Rustic Overtones?
Rustic Overtones is working right now in the studio. We're doing this thing that we're just embarking on a sonic trip around the world, where we're doing a song inspired by like different countries and regions all over the world, to kind of extend our knowledge and learning of music. So it's ever growing.
So where is that in the process then, right now?
3 songs in.
3 songs in. Do you have a label? You're going to go indie? What are you
No way. No way. It's like, right now, it's like I went through all that label stuff, and a lot of bands did. And now the only labels that are alive, they all died because of the internet. Yeah. Universal is still around because they're a movie studio, and Sony's still around because they're a movie studio. But the labels and the way the music was structured, the machine, the payola, and all that stuff, it seems like it's a thing of the past. And the internet makes it an even playing field. So I'm like, oh, cool. Oh, we're gonna play fair now. Oh, cool. I don't need a label. I got this. Go directly to the fans. And that's the beautiful thing about what music is these days.
We know you here in New England. Are you known outside of this region? I mean, you play here a fair amount. I mean, off and on, I guess, when the band is active. But I mean, how about outside? Have you developed in other markets?
Yeah, we perform all over the country, and I've performed all over the world. And it's whenever we feel like getting a field trip together and all holding hands and going someplace, we take a trip and go there. But we're Mainers, so especially this time of year, we're hibernating in our studio. We have a studio there, and it really is like the song I'm going to play, Rock Like War, is all about weather. But in the wintertime, that's what we do. We hunker down and make records. And then we get to the summertime to play them, and we're like, oh, geez, that's kind of dark. But that's just the way it works. And that has formed our musical catalog.
All right. Well, look, you're going to take us out with a song. I will just close by saying thanks for watching Boston Rock Talk. I'm Jim Sullivan, and your host, Dave Gutter from Rustic Overtones, has been our guest today. Dave, thank you for joining us here at Hojoko, our first show at Hojoko Restaurant, connected to the Verb Hotel, Kenmore Square in Boston. Dave?